If you've been watching Invasion Season 3 and feeling like things have been crawling along at a snail's pace, you're definitely not alone. The first 2 episodes were heavy on setup, character focus, and a lot of talking, but they didn't really push the story forward in an exciting way. Episode 1 spent most of its time with Trevante. And while Shamir Anderson is great, that premiere felt bogged down with exposition. Episode 2 shifted to Mitsuki and gave us plenty of Nikhil, who continues to be one of the most unlikable and frustrating characters on the show. For many fans, those first 2 episodes were proof of the same old problem, Invasion being slow and overly drawn out. But then comes episode 3 titled Infinitas, and suddenly it feels like we're finally getting somewhere. This is the first time in Season 3 that there's real forward movement. The mystery is deeper, the pacing is sharper, and the final cliffhanger finally delivers the kind of tension we've been waiting for. And while Nikhil still lingers around like an unwanted guest, he gets very little screen time here, which honestly makes the whole episode easier to enjoy. By the end of episode 3, the stakes are clear. Another invasion has begun. Let's dive into a full breakdown and recap of everything that happened in Invasion Season 3, Episode 3, and why this might finally be the turning point the season needed. The episode makes a very smart move right away by reintroducing Anisha, who is now living a quiet suburban life with Clark and her kids. It looks peaceful on the surface, but you can tell she's still haunted by the trauma of the last invasion. Instead of stretching out her entry into the story with long sequences of her worrying about aliens, the writers cut straight to the chase. Trevante and Jamila show up at her door almost immediately. Their reason for showing up is simple but intriguing. They want to ask her son, Luke, some questions about Casper's brain activity before he died. They bring an EEG printout that shows a strange spike, and since Anisha is a nurse, they hope she might understand it. But she's just as confused as them. The official story from the WDC is that Caspar suffered a seizure, but Jamila doesn't buy it. Something else is going on. Luke, meanwhile, insists that he hasn't heard anything from the aliens since the mothership crash, but we find out quickly that he's lying. That night, he privately tells his mom that when Trevante returned, he actually did hear them, and he even drew the same strange waveform that matched Casper's EEG. By morning, Anisha is already at Trevante's motel room, ready to team up with him and Jamila. What's really clever about this part of the story is how natural it feels for Anisha to jump back into action. Her daughter Ryder is throwing herself into studying so she can become a doctor and help people as quickly as possible. Clark is obsessively checking conspiracy forums about aliens. Everyone around Anisha is still living in the shadow of the invasion, and deep down, she knows it isn't over. Her decision to get involved again doesn't feel forced. It feels like the only choice she could make. And speaking of Clark's conspiracy browsing, that's what gives Trevante his next lead. He stumbles across an anonymous source called Infinitas, who has been leaking alien-related information to the public. These leaks are shocking because they include classified data that ordinary people would never have access to. One of the leaks even shows a strange frequency that appeared across all alien portals just minutes before Trevante returned. That frequency looks exactly like Casper's EEG and Luke's sketches. So naturally, Trevante and Anisha decide to head to an Infinitas meeting in Baker City. Jamila, however, isn't allowed to join them. Trevante locks her in the motel room, supposedly for her own protection, but also because he's struggling with his own issues. He's having visions, mood swings, and bursts of violent anger that make him unstable. You can tell he's trying to hold it together, but he's barely hanging on. When they finally get to the Infinitas meeting, things take a weird and unsettling turn. The group feels like a mix between conspiracy theorists, survivalists, and an armed militia. They hand out pamphlets, rant about locking up alien, sensitive children, and wave their guns around as if they're preparing for war. It's extreme and definitely uncomfortable. Trevante doesn't fit in at all, and it only takes a few minutes before they recognize him and accuse him of being a traitor. He ends up having to fight his way out. Anisha, however, proves to be the smarter one. She quietly talks to someone at the meeting and manages to get herself a contact. Not long after, she receives a text message inviting her to a private follow-up meeting. This is where we meet Debbie, a suburban soccer mom, who shows up to chauffeur them to a secret location. The meeting takes place in a fancy house, and inside are several people, including 2 women who clearly hold authority. Their job is to test whether Trevante and Anisha have anything useful to offer. When asked about the frequency, these women reveal something shocking. The last time it was heard was right when the Hunter-killer ships showed up, and it was coming from a NASA Deep Space Network station. When Trevante hears the frequency played back, he suffers an intense reaction. His ears ring, and he has a terrifying vision of his time on the mothership, where he reaches for an alien through a disgusting goo-covered wall. This seems to suggest that the aliens are still hiding inside the remains of the crashed ship. But before anyone can dig deeper, the FBI raids the house. Everyone inside is arrested, including Trevante and Anisha. Meanwhile, the episode doesn't forget about Mitsuki and Nicole. They sneak into Portal Base 11 in the Atlantic Ocean, trying to grab some data from the servers. But just as the FBI is storming Trevante's meeting, WDC soldiers storm the control room at the portal. They hold Mitsuki and Nicole at gunpoint. Mitsuki then experiences the same painful ringing in her ears that Trevante did earlier. She screams as the portal begins to rumble, and then it happens. Alien tentacles burst through the portal, killing all the soldiers instantly. In the chaos, Nicole actually manages to be useful for once, dragging an unconscious Mitsuki to safety. The episode ends with chaos breaking out across the world. At Anisha and Clark's house, news reports confirm that alien attacks are happening at all portal sites. It's official. A second invasion has begun. Jamila shows up at the house, looking for Trevante, and she learns that he and Anisha never made it back from the meeting. Their whereabouts are unknown, leaving things on a huge cliffhanger. Episode 3 of Invasion Season 3 feels like a breath of fresh air after 2 slow episodes. For the first time, the mystery feels alive, the stakes feel real, and the action is meaningful. The reintroduction of Anisha grounds the story emotionally, and tying her family's personal struggles to the larger alien threat works really well. Trevante's deteriorating state adds tension, while Mitsuki's side of the story finally escalates in a dramatic way with the tentacle attack. The cliffhanger is easily one of the strongest endings the show has delivered in a while. The aliens are back, and this time it looks like they're coming in full force. For fans who are starting to lose patience with Invasion, Infinitas finally makes it feel like the season has a purpose. The slow burn is paying off, and now the real fight for survival is about to begin.